Hello, this is Lady B, and I'm bringing you a suggestion as opposed to a recipe from the Calendar Book of Natural Beauty for May. And the reason I'm saying a suggestion is because one of the things it talks about in May is how toothpastes, modern toothpastes, have a lot of additives that aren't really good for us. And so it suggests making your own at home. And it has a recipe here for a sage and salt toothpaste, which didn't really interest me. But if you're interested, you can give it a try, because it's just a 1/4 cup each of salt and sage, ground together really well, sprinkled with a little water until it makes a paste, bake it in the oven, and then grind it up again and use it for your toothpaste. It's pretty basic. If you want to give it a try, go ahead. But it didn't interest me. But it didn't say use this one. It said use something made at home where you know what is in it, where there's none of those chemicals and things. And this book is from 1973. So if you can imagine how much more is in our toothpaste than there were back in 1973. I mean, it's been nearly 50 years, and you go to the store and you look at the ingredients list on those toothpastes, and there's chemicals and all kinds of things you can't pronounce. So I went online and I looked around at all the different things. It's a growing interest in this sort of thing. So there was a lot of resources for me, and I found a recipe I wanted to try out with a few tweaks of my own. I'll put the link in the description to the original that inspired this. But it is fairly simple. You start with, in here I have 7 tablespoons of calcium carbonate. And to that I'm going to add 5.5 tablespoons of xylitol. Now, if you've never used xylitol before, it is a natural sweetener that is considered a sugar alcohol. It's not a sugar. It's sweet, but it is not a sugar. If it's very low on the glycemic index, and it's good for your teeth. It will not do any damage to your teeth, unlike other sweeteners. A lot of the sugar-free gums that advertise as being really good for your teeth will use xylitol to sweeten them. Then to that we want 3 tablespoons of, this is just baking soda, the kind you use when you're making quick breads and other things like that, cakes and so whatnot. And then this is a 1/2 teaspoon of xanthan gum. And it is commonly used in gluten-free baking as a binder that gives you that gluten-like result. But it's very much something that changes the texture of things you put it in. So I now have these 4 ingredients, and I'm just going to stir them up until they're nicely mixed. Just takes a minute. And then to this, I'm going to add, this is 5 tablespoons of teaspoons, 5 teaspoons of water, which is the same as a tablespoon and 2 teaspoons. But if you get these little shot glasses that have the measurements on them, and I just love them, they're wonderful for measuring liquid. They do have a teaspoon measurer, and you can do 5 teaspoons. It just makes it easy. And then in that, we're going to also add, this is sweet almond oil, and we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of the sweet almond oil. There we go. And our flavoring. Now I'm using peppermint oil, which is actually what the original recipe did use, but she had a peppermint oil that was an essential oil that could be used in a dropper. And this does not come in a dropper. The amount she used was between 30 and 50 drops, which is the same, 40 drops is the same as a half teaspoon. Now, this is a little stronger than the essential oils, so I am going to go a little light on it. Basically, I recommend around, and she admitted in her recipe that she went really strong. I would recommend around a half teaspoon, but like I said, I'm going to go kind of light because I'm not really into strong flavors in my toothpaste. That's just me. So I used probably about a quarter teaspoon, close, well, a little more than a quarter, close to that 30 drops that she mentions as the low end. And mix that water and the oils together. Right in here, I'm doing it. I've made a little hole in the middle, kind of like when you're baking, making noodles or breads or stuff, where you make that little volcano with the flour and then you put your liquid in the middle. That's what I've done here. And then I'm just going to mix it in. And it's going to be quite crumbly to begin with. But she says in her recipe that if you just keep mixing, it will become smooth. So let's give that a try and see how that works out. Oh, I can smell the peppermint oil. I think I made the right call with the low end amount of that. Now, the thing I found interesting, one of the reasons I picked hers was because I had heard, I don't know if there's any truth in this, but I'd heard that Arrowroot was really good if you have sensitive teeth. And I also do have sensitive teeth, and I buy a natural toothpaste. I'm actually allergic to fluoride. So I've been buying Tom's of Maine toothpaste, and I highly recommend it if you don't want to go to the trouble of making your own and you're looking for a more natural toothpaste. I would recommend Tom's of Maine. But the sensitive toothpaste I buy from Tom's of Maine has the calcium carbonate in it, which made me think this was probably a good choice of all the recipes I looked at. So you can see here I now have a stiff paste. So one step left, and that is the Arrowroot I just mentioned. Now, I have here something I have pre-made. And you have to prepare this ahead of time, but it's the last ingredient to go in. And what it is, it's a 1/4 cup of water with a 1/2 tablespoon of arrowroot that you dissolve. Arrowroot works just like cornstarch or any of the other starches that are used for thickening, where you blend it with the water and it makes the water look milky. And then you put it on the stove and you stir the whole time while you bring it up to a boil. And as it boils, it thickens and it becomes this translucent color. It's just kind of hard to see. Now let's see if I can get this off my fingers. This is probably why you don't mix with your hands, because now it is very stuck. But get this off my fingers there. There we go. See if I can pour this and you can see it better. You see it, when it comes out, you can see how thick that is, but you can also see that it is almost clear. And that's how you know it's done on the stove. And the reason you're going to prepare this ahead of time is because you actually want it to be cool when you add this. So I prepared this on the stove, and then I assembled all my other ingredients. And by the time I had assembled all my other ingredients and measured everything out, it was cool enough to use. Now, the author of the original recipe, I think she pre-preps all her ingredients in one go. So for her, she actually suggested putting it in the freezer for 10 minutes to cool it enough so that you could just throw it in by the time you were done measuring and mixing, but not gathering. So that's always an option. So now I have in here, I don't know how well you can see it, I have my paste and I have my goop. And I'm going to mix those two together until they're smooth. She describes it as smooth, slightly fluffy. So, and the Arrowroot is supposed to be what gives it that smoothness. I suspect it also has something to do with the additional liquid. Oh, that is changing texture quite nicely. This looks like toothpaste. We have toothpaste, and I've mostly finished mixing this. You can see how it's become a lot smoother. The mess is from getting my hands into it. I used my hands to break down the larger lumps. I would recommend just using a rubber spatula, and you won't need to do that. And now I'm just beating it to get out the little ones. That looks pretty good. You can see that looks like toothpaste. So I have here a glass jar. This is not an expensive jar. In fact, I picked this up at a dollar store, but I think it's the right size to hold this. We'll find out. Glue. So you will want to store it in glass. You can buy squeezy tubes, plastic squeezy tubes, and if you're going to use it quickly, that'd probably be fine. But if it's not going to be used quickly, then definitely store it in glass, because plastic will sometimes leak things into whatever you have stored in it. I don't really recommend plastic for long-term storage, and something the person who this recipe came from agrees with. So get the rest of that in there. Looks like I guessed right on my size. So this should be toothpaste. We'll see how it works out. So I have been using this toothpaste now for about a week, and I have to say I love it. I mean, I really, really love it. It works. I love the fact that I can flavor it whatever I want, but it comes down to it works. Has great mouthfeel, and it gets my teeth clean. And as I said, I have sensitive teeth, and I don't know if it was the Arrowroot has anything to do with it, it's calcium carbonate, what, but it has not been an issue with this so far. I have not had any problems with the sensitivities with my teeth. And I just love it. Absolutely love it. I absolutely recommend it. Now, the only changes I made to the original recipe is that I used distilled water instead of filtered water, which is what she called for. And the other thing was I did the conversion from drops to teaspoons. And I know that's not for everybody, but I did the equivalent of about 30 drops, and it was very, very mild flavoring. It was a little salty, actually, probably because I did such few drops. I'm going to assume the saltiness was from the calcium carbonate, but it was a little salty, but still minty. So if you don't like the saltiness, go with at least the 40 to 50, if not the 50 drops that she recommends, which the 40 drops is the equivalent of a half teaspoon. So that's what I'd recommend, is to do the half teaspoon. But either way, you can check out her original recipe on her site. And it's the person who made this, who came up with the recipe, is name's Melody Joy. And her website is called Farm Girl Inspirations. And I have put a link down below to it so you can check it out yourself. Give it a try if you want to. I highly recommend it. I'm very, very, very happy with this. Not only am I loving this, my husband has started using it too instead of the really expensive toothpaste we've been buying him. He prefers this instead. And we'd been buying, his favorite for I don't know how long, spending how much money on it, and now he wants this. So, give it a try. 2 thumbs up. I can't rave enough about it. I love it. So, that's everything. Until next time, this is Lady B signing off. And we'll see you later.